And good morning, and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday, 7. My name is Dr. Ashaki is moving slow. I'm not sure what's wrong this morning. Um, I don't know. I've just been having issues with my internet. I don't understand it. I really don't. I'm trying. I'm trying. It's me. It's just me here. Oops. It's a little warm. Here am just, doing the show. I don't want to say it's completely this. Um, I will figure out this wonderful internet, but let's get started this morning with our kids' corner.
You ever faced an obstacle that made you doubt if you could get past it? Sure you have. Even as kids, life can throw some tough challenges our way, but fear not. I've got 3 awesome ways that will help you conquer anything that comes your way. Let's dive right in. Think positive. It's all about changing our mindset and focusing on the bright side of things. Whenever you face a difficult situation, take a step back and think about what you can learn or gain from it. Embracing positivity will give you the strength to tackle any obstacle head on. Trust me, something magical happens when we shift our mindset to focus on the possibilities rather than the problems. So, remember, even in the face of adversity, keep that positive energy flowing. Teamwork makes the dream work. It's incredible what we can achieve when we work together. Don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it, and always be there for your friends and family. Together, you can conquer even the tallest mountains. Remember, everyone has different strengths, and when we collaborate, we bring out the best in each other. So, don't be shy to lend a hand or seek support. Together, we are unstoppable. Never give up. Sometimes, obstacles may seem insurmountable, but that's where perseverance comes in. It's vital to keep pushing forward, even when things get tough. Trust me, the reward at the end is worth every ounce of effort. Remember, every great accomplishment starts with that decision to never give up. So keep trying, keep learning, and most importantly, keep believing in yourself. And that's a wrap on overcoming anything. Remember, obstacles are just stepping stones to success. By thinking positive, working together, and never giving up, you can overcome anything that stands in your way.
And that's good to remember.
Get to smash that subscribe button and listen to the podcast. Thanks for watching, and always.
You
ever faced an obstacle that made
the video because it is skipping. So you guys. Wow. Okay. Sorry about that. It just got a little wonky on my side where I couldn't really hear it and it was bouncing back and forth. I'm like, oh my goodness. And it's so weird because when I'm just, it's just me in the studio and I'm setting everything up and I'm going through the camera and I'm doing all this stuff by myself. It's fine. It's fine. But the minute I get ready to start the show, oh my goodness. It's just, it's the worst. It's the worst. So I'm going to play with the definition right now and just see if taking the definition down to 720 helps at all with the refresh rate. That looks, I don't look great, but at least you can see me moving because it's been crazy. So, thanks for hanging in there with me. Like I said, it can get a little wonky. A little bit interesting over here. So I've done a little bit of a different setup, just with the camera angles and, different things. So if you see me looking over to the right, it's because I put my monitor over there so I could see a little bit better. I don't know. I might move my monitors maybe this way, side by side. We will see. Just trying to keep things centered. But again, thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Eastern. And so with that, we are going to get into our how to pray the prayer of Jabez, right? So God bless us with more um, than that we need so we can be a blessing to others. God, God, please give us influence so that we can make a difference. God, make us aware of your presence. And God, protect us from every attack of the devil. And I just want to read this last was it First Chronicles 4:10? Jabez cried out to God, to the God of Israel, "Oh, that you would bless me and enlarge my territory. Let your hand be with me and keep me from harm, so that I will be free from pain." And God granted his request. So I'm reading that just to remember that God granted his request. He granted it. He didn't leave him destitute. And those are the things that we have to remember. God will grant our requests. He is looking out for us and after us. It's up to us, what are we going to do, with what God is doing for us? It's that part that we have to, you know, keep into account. So I've got a lot to cover this morning. This is Tell It All Tuesday. So I'm bringing you, I would say, videos and material that you may not necessarily hear about within the news cycle, right? Because right now we are definitely in a news cycle with things going on in Minnesota and just the fraud going on. And, we got things going on with Venezuela and Trump at Davos. I mean, there's a lot going on. Lot going on. But I wanted to play this video, and this is from the Friedman channel. This is from Consuelo, and she's been on our show before. She's definitely a friend and a guest that has been on the show, and she has her own podcast, and she reprised a video of Donald Trump at the Black Foundation. Oh, goodness. Let me get it right. Black Conservative Federation, BCF. And I was actually at that event because I was looking at it. I was like, wait a minute, I was there. I got a chance to be there. That was in 2024 prior to the election. So let's check it out.
Battlefields of the American Revolution, and they really did. When you read the history, what they gave up. They gave everything to smash the chains of slavery and preserve our nation, and they did it with incredible bravery. They helped win the Wild West, tame the skies, and save freedom in the Second World War. They're warriors. From the very beginning, Black Americans have been a vital part of the American story, helping to make this the greatest nation in the history of the world. So true. Thank you. We thank you. We thank you for it. Black patriots fought and bled on the battlefields of the American Revolution, and they really did. When you read the history, what they gave up. They gave everything to smash the chains of slavery and preserve our nation, and they did it with incredible bravery. They helped win the Wild West, tame the skies, and save freedom in the Second World War. They're warriors. From the very beginning, Black Americans have been a vital part of the American story, helping to make this the greatest nation in the history of the world. So true. Thank you. We thank you. We thank you for it. Black patriots fought and bled on the battlefields of the American.
I wanted to share this at the beginning of my lives. Uh-oh. Okay. All right. I want people to hear that. I want people to continue to hear that. Okay. Because this is showing a great deal about our present president. And some of us just not getting it. We're not understanding. But anyway, we're going to move to the next one that I wanted to show, because I think I saw this from the White House. I died. I was like, are you serious? They really on some real political gang banging. And I am loving it all, because it's all being revealed. And this administration is no holds barred. They're not coming out timid. They are making sure that they take a stance. And I'm all for it, because at this present point in time, what you all, what the freedmen need to acknowledge is that where our Black politicians, our Black American Negro freedmen leadership that you voted for, where are they in this moment? Speaking for your people, speaking out against all the fraud with the Democrats. I don't hear anything. Do y'all hear anybody? Do you all hear anything other than fighting for them immigrants? Not Americans. They fighting for immigrants. Okay, I got to show this, because this goes hard right here from the Trump administration. I have to include this here in this live today, because they went hard with this. Hold on. Let me get it going. I got to share my screen, y'all, because this one is another good one. I said I have to open with this one, because when you see this, y'all are going to be like tripping. If you haven't seen it already, on X, or you haven't seen this clip, you're gonna die. That's why I titled this particular segment of this live of the live today as political gang banging. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. You all see my screen, and now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna play this, because this is hilarious. Let's go.
Aquí no esperan Miraflores, venga por mí. Aquí no esperan Miraflores, no se tarde en llegar, cobarde. And now, if you don't know, now you know.
We do that. Gangster. Straight gangster Mac. Yeah. So I'll definitely have to have Consuelo on, so she can share more with us about the Freedman channel and just, the topics that she's covering over there. So definitely support her. She's on YouTube, and that is the Freedman_ channel. So definitely check her out. Now, another article that I wanted to get to that I came across was that Minnesota has decided to file a lawsuit against the Trump administration in regards to what's happening with the ICE agents. Now, I'm not sure if the incident from last week triggered this lawsuit, or if the lawsuit was kind of something in place prior to, because there has been, a few states. There's been Chicago, well, I won't say Chicago, Illinois, there's been California, there's been New York. Now, all three of these states, they have about the same amount of illegal immigration. ICE is coming in. So I find it interesting that Minnesota has decided to file a lawsuit when they're under so much scrutiny and federal investigation for the fraud going on in their state. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how this fares out. But let's look at this article.
Back, local officials in Minnesota have just filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration to block the surge of ICE officers to the state. Raids escalated in the region on Sunday, including in St. Paul, where a man was dragged from his car and a bystander filming the incident was tackled by federal agents. CBS News Homeland Security correspondent Nicole Skenga joins us now from Minneapolis. Nicole, great to see you. I know you've been on the ground there for over a week. What more do we know about this lawsuit that's just been filed?
Yeah, Caitlin, just moments ago, the Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison announced this federal lawsuit. He called what is happening here on the ground in Minneapolis, what DHS has dubbed Operation Metro Surge, a federal investigation accusing the Department of Homeland Security of launching an unlawful, unprecedented surge of federal law enforcement into Minnesota. He said, quote, "This has to stop." He went on to cite some of the legal theories in this very novel federal lawsuit, saying it was a violation of the Constitution, of federal law, citing the 10th Amendment, saying it was a violation of state sovereignty that had a reckless impact on schools, on churches, on local law enforcement. He said DHS's use of excessive lethal force has made the community here terrified. He also said it was a violation of the little-known Administrative Procedures Act, which bars federal agencies from taking actions that are capricious and arbitrary. Another very interesting fact from the Minnesota Attorney General, he said local law enforcement has spent over $2 billion over the past few days in order to protect the city in light of all of the activity here. And he went on to say that this was an unlawful commandeering of local law enforcement resources. And certainly we're here at the vigil right now honoring the memory of Renee Good. And there is a local police presence on site.
Yeah, Nicole, speaking of that memorial that you're standing in front of, there is an investigation into what happened last week. Where does that all stand?
Yeah, actually, Caitlin, there are two investigations right now. We know that the FBI is leading the federal investigation into exactly what happened in the moments leading up and after Renee Good was fatally shot by an ICE agent. Certainly, there was a big FBI presence here on Wednesday. We saw them flood the scene collecting evidence. But since then, state authorities and local leaders have spoken out, claiming that they have been sidelined and denied access to evidence. Typically, in a situation like that, you will see local law enforcement, local authorities, state authorities pairing with the federal government in a joint investigation. That is not the case here. We're seeing the FBI take control of this investigation. CBS News has also learned that the Civil Rights Division within the Department of Justice is not participating in this investigation. Because of that, Minnesota lawmakers said that they will launch a parallel investigation. And we actually saw some of those state investigators canvassing the street today looking for witnesses.
All right, Nicole Sganga, thank you so much for your reporting on that and for the past several days on the ground there. We really appreciate it. It's good to see you.
Yeah, so there will be two investigations going on, and that makes sense, right? State and federal. The federal government can't stop the state from investigating, and then the state can't stop the federal government from investigating. But this lawsuit that is moving forward, and it was filed on yesterday, January 12th. And so I'm going to be looking this way so I can keep everything moving. But I just wanted to make sure you guys were like, why is she looking over that way? Because I got to. But it says in the U.S. District Court for the District of Minnesota, it targets the Department of Homeland Security, ICE, and related officials over the large-scale immigration enforcement surge known as Operation Metro Surge. The operation has deployed thousands of federal agents to the Twin Cities, leading to widespread raids, arrests, and significant public controversy, including the fatal shooting of a Minneapolis woman, Renee Nicole Good, by an ICE agent on January 7th. Now, what I find fascinating is like, okay, you want to file a lawsuit against the Trump administration for the federal agents doing their job while they're being harassed by other groups that shouldn't even be there, interfering in their investigations. Like, what are we talking about? Because they're not just going out raiding people. That's not what they're doing. They are trying to get people that have deportation orders removed from the United States. And these people hid in your communities, and you're continuing to hide them. Again, like I had this whole talk with Grok yesterday. It was like, oh no, they're not harboring. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. If you are letting them back in your city and you're trying to deter people from removing them, you're trying to hide and harbor them. That's just common sense. We're not going to stop doing common sense. Okay, yes, I do use Grok as a aggregate to collect information. But I think Grok was wrong when Grok was like, "Oh no, they're not in violation." Yes, they are. They are in violation of so many federal laws. There should be so many people in prison right now, and it is mind-boggling that they are not. But let's move on. So the Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, who's also under federal investigation, by the way, because of the fraud that's been going on in the state. This is just so. Oh my gosh! If I wasn't, I don't even know how to say this the right way. It's not that it's comical because it's very um disheartening, I should say, that somebody that's an attorney general is so bent and focused on protecting illegal activity, not legal activity, but calling it legal, what he's doing. It's like you're completely protecting people here illegally, but you're trying to do your best to protect it like we're trying to protect our state for prison time. I'm just saying. Describing the surge as unconstitutional federal invasion that has terrorized communities, involved excessive force, warrantless arrest, and commandeered local resources, straining local police and costing millions. The complaint seeks a declaration that the surge is unlawful, an injunction to halt or block it, a temporary restraining order for immediate relief. The core legal claims include violations of the 10th Amendment, alleging federal overreach into state sovereignty and commandeering of local resources. First Amendment violations, claiming the surge is retaliatory punishment for Minnesota's political positions, sanctuary policies, and election outcomes. What does that even have to do with anything? You're admitting. Sir, what does that have to do with ICE removing people that have deportation orders? Your policies are protecting them. This is that thing. You've created a problem. Now you want a solution worse than the problem is trying to solve. I'm not saying that the lawsuit is a worse solution, but you wouldn't have ICE in your state at all to the degree that they're there had you just detained people who have deportation orders and let ICE remove them. We wouldn't even be having this conversation right now. That young lady, she died in vain, in my opinion, because it should have never gotten to this point where she felt the need to put her life at risk and put herself in the middle of a federal investigation and raid that was happening with ICE agents. Why did she feel as a US citizen it was okay to block vehicles that were in pursuit of somebody here illegally? Like, what the mentality? It's off. It's off. Stop it. And I'm calling out the NAACP, the ACLU, and all these other, acronymed agencies out here telling people, yeah, you need to go against ICE. Are you insane? These are federal agents and officers. What is wrong with you? That's like saying, okay, you guys, go out and get the police. Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. It happened. That already happened in Minnesota because you already burned it down. That happened under George Floyd. Was that summer of love nonsense going on? That happened. That happened. You guys did that. And now you want a lawsuit to keep federal agents from doing their job. It's crazy. But the craziest part is the response they got from Grok. So, arbitrary, capricious agency action, the Administrative Procedures Act, equal sovereignty of states, arguing Minnesota is being singled out politically despite having a lower percentage of undocumented immigrants than many other states. You're not being singled out. You're not. Everybody's on their radar. California, Illinois, New York. Sorry, the country is on their radar. Okay. It just so happens that while you're under federal investigation for fraud, which is a completely separate issue, the illegal immigration going on in your state needs to be dealt with because you've got some pretty interesting people in your state, again, that you're trying to protect, which is crazy. So this is a very recent development, and it was just filed. And the state has already moved for a temporary restraining order with a hearing potentially scheduled soon. So does it have standing? Because that was my question. So in U.S. federal courts, states generally have strong standing to sue the federal government when they allege direct harm to state sovereignty, right? Commandeering resources or violating the 10th Amendment, economic or administrative injury, costs to local law enforcement responding to federal actions, um, pairings, portray standing, acting as protector of residents' rights. And it's interesting that it says residents and not American citizens. Who are we protecting? Really, right? These are common base in lawsuits against federal immigration or enforcement policies, and similar challenges by states have been filed successfully in the past, right? So let's see, Sanctuary City disputes a broader policy cases here. So Minnesota and the cities claim concrete ongoing harms, community terror, resource strains, civil rights violations. The political retaliation angle adds a First Amendment dimension, which courts often scrutinize. The Trump administration, via DHS spokespeople, have pushed back strongly, calling it a baseless or pathetic stunt and asserting that the Constitution is on their side as they enforce federal immigration law against non cooperative jurisdictions. They plan to defend vigorously in court. So, no court has yet ruled on the merits or standing. We'll probably be finding this out in real time because right now it's 7:59 a.m. my time, Eastern. So I would say probably about maybe noon, we'll get some updates on this. Where, obviously it's just been filed. So the judges have to have time to come up, deliberate, go through it. Now, I ask, with ICE trying to remove individuals that have deportation orders, is Minnesota interfering with immigration enforcement? Now, this is the the feedback from God. No, Minnesota is not actively interfering with ICE's efforts to remove individuals who already have final deportation orders, but the state and its localities maintain policies that limit cooperation with federal immigration enforcement, which the Trump administration and ICE describe as obstruction. So this is interesting in my opinion. I mean, for me, this is the first time maybe it's not the first time in history that this has gone on, but it is such a tug of war, I would say, with on the legal side. Why are you defending people here illegally? I guess to me, that's just the basic conversation. Why are you defending people here illegally and putting American citizens at risk? Right. So, I played a few videos yesterday and we heard that young woman yelling and screaming. I think about her, and as passionate as she is about making sure people are protected, she's putting herself at risk because she's defending illegal activity, not legal activity. And I don't know, when we jump the shark here in America, where we've got literally people fighting for evil, but this is biblical because it even tells us that there's going to come a time when people call evil good and good evil. And in my opinion, this is one of those times. We actually have a state filing a lawsuit saying, you're violating our rights coming in here to try to remove people here illegally. I'm going to say that again. You're violating our rights to remove people that are here illegally. That's what we're dealing with. I don't care what flowery word somebody tries to come up with. This is what we're doing. What we're doing. And we're filing a lawsuit. It's crazy. And it says Minnesota is not a full sanctuary state by law. There is no statewide statute completely barring cooperation with ICE. However, state and local law enforcement generally do not honor ICE civil immigration detainers. Requests to hold someone longer for ICE to pick up, because that's all ICE is asking. Like, hold them here so we can get them. Don't send them back out in the general public so we have to be on the streets with the general public. That's why I say this woman lost her life in vain, because they could have detained this person and said, ICE, come over here, whatever address, and pick them up and do with them what you need to do. But they're not doing that. I don't want any more of these babies hurt. I call them babies because they're more than likely younger than my kids. Okay, out there, in their early 20s, late teens. I don't want to see anybody else get hurt. And they think that they are this revolutionary army out there and they're going to fight ICE. Stop that. Stop it. There are people here illegally. They have deportation orders to be removed. They need to be removed. If they truly respected America, they would have come through the proper ports of entry and they would have done this the right way. We have legal immigration. Do you hear me? We have legal immigration. There is no reason that there should be so many people here illegally. But you know what's going to happen? A lot of this money, this federal dollars, is going to be shut off like a whole big faucet. Completely shut off. What are you going to do then? Because when there's no more money, there's no more money. What you going to do? Huh? You going to pay them bills? Nope. You going to be able to feed your kids? Nope. You're going to be trying to figure your life out. You better get up off the soil. Get up off the soil, because at this juncture, anybody that has deportation orders for removal and you haven't left, you don't respect this country, and you should never be allowed to be a citizen here. You should never be allowed to be on the soil ever again. Ever again. Like, you've got to go now. You shouldn't be here. This is not your home. You're not my neighbor. You're not an American citizen. You're not even naturalized. And there are those that are here that are naturalized, that don't respect this country. You need to be put through a denaturalization process. We need to do a whole thing. A whole thing. There are millions of people here that do not need to be here. They need to be denaturalized. Oh yeah, you can be removed from the soil. Don't think you can't. I'm looking forward to it. Okay. Now, these policies focus on non-cooperation. So, context, the Operation Surge, and it's just going through it. And it says, is this interference? Now, here's the perspectives. From the federal perspective, yes, non-cooperative policies shield removable individuals, including those with deportation orders, forcing more aggressive federal tactics and endangering public safety. They already know, and they don't want to do that. But you have people here spitting on ICE, throwing things at them, throwing things at their car, barring their cars in, following them all day. You're harassing federal agents. Like, what is wrong with you? It's crazy. Now, from Minnesota's perspective, and AG Ellison cities, no, the state isn't blocking ICE, which is a lie. It's protecting residents' rights, avoiding commandeering local resources, and challenging what they see as excessive retaliatory federal force. Warrantless stops, excessive force actions near schools and churches. Well, the problem is these people that are here illegally, they're putting the public at risk, and you're allowing the public to be put at risk because you already know they're here illegally. So you're working against not only ICE, but your own public, and you want to stop it. No one's being gaslit here. We see you for who you are. In my opinion, anybody that's allowing this nonsense to happen in Minnesota, they need to be arrested. They need to be brought up on federal charges. Title 8, Section 1324, harboring. Title 18, Section 111, interfering with ICE agents while they're in the line of duty. It is insane. It is crazy, and it needs to stop. Now, there is another video that I wanted to share with you guys of someone who really packaged this very well. I love her breakdown. So let's check this out.
Good was killed during an ICE raid gone terribly wrong, and it is beyond tragic. Everyone obviously has an opinion on this, and I commented on a post where someone said, Renee could have been any one of us, and I simply said, could have never been me because I don't interfere with federal ICE enforcement. I cited U.S. code, and predictably, I got dragged in the comments. ICE hates you. You're justifying murder. They didn't have a warrant. She had a right to flee. You're next. It was all expected. But guys, ICE agents are federal officers, and under federal law, specifically 18 U.S. Code sections 111 and 372, assaulting, resisting, impeding, or conspiring to interfere with a federal officer doing their job is a crime. That includes blocking them, chasing them, surrounding them, or physically interfering with their operation. Should that get someone shot? No. But can it escalate into deadly consequences? Clearly, yes. And that is a risk far too many civilians are being convinced to take right now. Someone is dead, and that is horrific, no matter how you spin it. The investigation will determine exactly what happened, but people can debate video angles and split-second decisions and alleged ties to ICE watch groups all day long. But regardless of the details of this case, the fact that groups like this exist at all, encouraging civilians to track and confront federal agents, should terrify us. We've normalized the idea that suburban moms can grab their phone, hop in their Kia Telluride, and pull alongside an active enforcement operation against trained agents with guns and somehow expect to walk away untouched because someone told them that that's activism. That is insane. This lie is pushed by people who benefit from chaos, media outlets doing it from behind cozy desks, chasing outrage and headlines, politicians doing it from comfortable offices, chasing votes, and loud and wrong content creators doing it from behind their phones, chasing clicks, with no understanding of the law they're encouraging others to break. They're using compassionate people as fuel. You don't have to like ICE. You don't have to support immigration enforcement. But deporting people who are here illegally is not new. It has existed under every administration, including Obama, our deporter-in-chief. What is new is convincing everyday civilians, moms in their cars, bystanders in the street, that stepping between an armed federal officer and his mission is smart, righteous, or consequence-free. That is not bravery. That is not activism. That is delusion, and it has now gotten someone killed. Political battles belong in elections, courts, and legislatures, not in the streets. And for the love of God, please stop letting people who profit from outrage convince you to risk your life for their headlines.
Yeah. Because if it bleeds, it leads. And that is a awesome summary of what's happening. It is the delusion. It is getting people to actually believe that what they're doing is for a righteous cause. It's not righteous. There is nothing righteous about you going out and putting your life at risk, impeding federal officers from doing their job. Like I was saying yesterday, there needs to be a border. You can't be within 300 feet of an officer, ever. If you see them driving and they've got their little, oh gosh, I forgot what I'm trying to say. But, if they're riding and they've got, more than one person and they're driving to a specific location, don't tail them. What are you doing? Don't try to be where they are. What are you doing? You should not be within 300 feet of their perimeter, which means if they are in one location, nobody can be within 300 feet of them unless they are supposed to be a federal agent. This also goes for media. Okay. The only persons that would maybe be closer than 300 feet might be neighbors that live next door, because unfortunately, some of these people are in houses, they are in communities. Like I said, these sanctuary states and cities, they're doing their citizens a disservice by putting these people back in the community and not detaining them and saying, ICE, please come get this person. They're causing more harm than anything. And I wanted to play a brief video from who she called the deporter in chief.
You'll be deported. If you plan to enter the U.S. illegally, your chances of getting caught and sent back just went up. The actions I'm taking are not only lawful, they're the kinds of actions taken by every single Republican president and every single Democratic president for the past half century.
I think we got to have tough conditions. Tell people to come out of the shadows. If they've committed a crime, deport them. No questions asked. They're gone.
All Americans, not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public service they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more, by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before, by cracking down on illegal hiring, by barring welfare benefits to illegal aliens. In the budget I will present to you, we will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crimes, to better identify illegal aliens in the workplace as recommended by the commission headed by former Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years, and we must do more to stop it.
And as you can see, in bipartisan fashion, they all stood up and clapped for that. What happened? 95, 2008. Huh? Starting with Obama. 2014, somewhere around in there, before he left office. They were penalizing companies that hired people to work there illegally under the table. They fined companies. They deported people. They weren't talking about protecting people here illegally. But now, that same party is today. Now it's like, oh my gosh, you can't do it. And, I don't know if I played a video about, I probably did because I play so many videos. Anyway, I came across one that was like, the only reason, I played yesterday. She was like, the only reason you're mad is because it's Trump. You're not mad because people are here illegally. You're mad because Trump is removing people that are here illegally. What is wrong with you? You just saw 3 of our most well-renowned Democratic leaders from the Democratic Party. I'm just going to say it. Clinton, he did his thing. He got the tech boom. He did that. There was a surplus in Social Security. And then, of course, Bush came right behind him and wiped it out. It happened. That's history. And then you had where Hillary Clinton was running. And she immediately said, if they have committed a crime, they need to be deported. How have we gotten away from this? Oh, that's right, because it's Trump. Look, the delusion is real. The mind virus is real. The mind virus. Yeah, that's what I'm calling it. It's a whole mind virus. And we have people everywhere, everywhere that believe the lie that what they are doing is for a righteous cause. And it's not. It's just not a righteous cause. It's very scary. It's very sad. I do not want to see anyone else injured or taken advantage of. Now, before we go to our break, there's a short video that I wanted to play. It's very disheartening what happened, but I definitely wanted to share it with you guys.
Who the last white girl to get unalived by law enforcement in Minneapolis was before Renee Good? No, you don't. And I bet you don't know that the person who did it was the first Somali police officer in the entire United States, and that they were convicted of murder, and it was later overturned by the Minnesota Supreme Court, and they only served a couple years. Bet you didn't know that, did you?
Yeah, that happened in Minnesota. And they sit there like, why are you picking on us? No one's picking on you. Honestly, nobody can pick on you unless you're doing things that are just happening. Like, really, what's going on? So this happened in 2017. It was a fatal shooting of Justin Damond by then Minneapolis police officer Mohammed Noor. Noor, a Somali American and one of the first Somali officers in MPD, was convicted in 2019, but had his third-degree murder conviction overturned by the Minnesota Supreme Court in 2021 due to legal issues with the charges application. He murdered somebody. Like, it wasn't even like she was doing something wrong. But this very woman was supporting people like him being here. Yeah. So she was 40-year-old Australian. She was a dual citizen. She was a spiritual healer, meditation coach, yoga teacher living in Minneapolis. Okay. She was engaged to be married and was known for her community involvement. Nor the police officer, the shooting occurred amid heightened scrutiny of police use of force, and the case drew international attention due to Desmond's Australian citizenship and the fact that she was unarmed and called 911 for help. So she was calling for help. The incident sparked debates about police training, body cameras, and perceived biases in media and justice coverage. Demond's family settled a wrongful death civil lawsuit against the city for $20 million. Yeah. So here's the key events, and I'll definitely make sure I link this for you guys. But she calls 911 twice to report hearing what she believed was a sexual assault or a woman screaming in the alley behind her home, right? Now, Noor and the driver, they respond about 11:35, 11:41. They drive slowly down the alley with the lights off, find no evidence of a crime, and prepare to leave. Damon approaches the driver's side in her pajamas. Harity reports being startled by a noise. Noor fires one shot across the vehicle through the open window, striking Damon in the abdomen. She dies shortly after at a hospital despite CPR attempts. What is wrong with you? You're just going to shoot because somebody is walking up to you in pajamas? What? So, investigation by the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. Noor invokes right to silence. Protests and vigils occur. Noor is placed on leave and later resigns. Okay. Noor is charged with third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter. Okay. The trial begins. Nor claims self-defense. How? She wasn't threatening you. You had a weapon. She didn't. She was in pajamas. So crazy. So crazy. Testifying, he believed there was a threat to his partner. Prosecutors argue the shooting was unreasonable. No weapon was found on Demond, and her fingerprints were not on the car. So how could she be a threat if she didn't even touch the car? Craziness. So the jury convicts Noor of third-degree murder, and this is what they're saying: depraved mind, indifference to human life, and second-degree manslaughter, culpable negligence. Acquits on second-degree intentional murder. He's sentenced to 12 and a half years in prison. February 1st, 2021, a Minnesota Court of Appeals and third-degree murder conviction. Okay. In September of that year, Minnesota Supreme Court overturns the third-degree murder conviction. The court ruled the state failed to prove depraved mind, indifference to human life in general. The charge requires conduct dangerous to multiple people, not just one specific victim. The case is remanded for resentencing on manslaughter only. So in 2021 of that same year, in October, he was resentenced to 57 months, 4 years and 9 months for second-degree manslaughter, the maximum under guidelines, for credit for time served. With credit for time served, because he was already in prison. So in 2022, Noor is released from prison after serving about 2/3 of the sentence. A supervised release follows until January of 2024. As of 2026, there are no further appeals, new convictions, or major developments. Noor's supervised release ended in 2024, and he is no longer incarcerated. So this individual that just shot somebody is now back out on the street, free. Crazy. Crazy. But this happened. And we wonder why, people get upset about loss of life. I mean, I'm just reading over, I'm like, really? Her life was worth less than 5 years. Like it was nothing. It's crazy. Craziness. So with that, we're going to take a quick break. And when we return, we're going to get into some more of this news of the day. But thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News for Tell It All Tuesday. And we will see you on the other side.
A life empowered is closer than you think. We're all looking for a better way. Reimagine what's next with a new sense of exuberance. Why not power on like you mean it? Or power off blissfully? A better sleep is a better awake. You've never moved like this before. With the energy nature intended. Imagine reprogramming the way you look at the speed of science. At longevity. At exhilaration. It's next level rejuvenation. Taking your well-being from the inside out and outside in. The light within is ready to ignite. Be the light. LifeWave.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. And with that, okay. So, guys, it was very heartbreaking to hear what happened because, I know the Somali community is really under attack right now. And he was one of the first officers, and that incident had to happen. It's like not a good look. And then you've got all this fraud going on. Not a good look. And this comes back to us making sure as a country that people are properly vetted when they're coming over here. And see, the refugees aren't vetted. It's just when they decide, okay, I want to be a naturalized citizen, then they're vetted, but they're not vetted when they come over here. So we don't know what kind of people we're getting. We don't know what kind of person this was that was serving as a police officer. We do not know because a lot of these people, they don't come with backgrounds. So you got to know that. They're just allowed to come over here and just be here. And that's something we need to do better at, to make sure that American citizens are protected. Now, this one is a little bit of an outlier. Now, people have probably heard of Lennar Homes. Okay. They are actually I guess it's like a construction company, and they build houses, right? They were actually mentioned by the Trump administration. But I came across a video that talked about accusations against Lennar Homes. And so I wanted to share that with you guys on this Tell It All Tuesday and investigate further. I'm hoping to have the gentleman that posted this video, it is on YouTube, talking about what's going on with Lennar Homes. So from those of you that are just listening, it says, we believe that through an investigation, we will reveal that Black contractors are all too often compromised as they attempt to do business with Lennar. Jeremy Murray, the procurement manager, operates the bait and switch narrative better than most. Mr. Murray has the authority to serve as, and I'll keep going, judge, jury, and executioner as it relates to contracting opportunity without ever having to worry about any sort of oversight. Mr. Murray has changed, rearranged, misled, and lied on several issues as it relates to our being involved on the project. So now it should move into the video and hopefully more insight as to what is happening. Lastly, we believe that simultaneously to Johnson Contracting Group bidding on the Mansouri Wall and Coast Land Clearing bidding on the grading, we believe strongly that those contracts have already been committed to other contractors, whereas
we are here today because Lennar Homes is unfair to the National Black Contractors Association, and more in particularly the Young Black Contractors Association, a general engineering contracting firm that's locally from this area for the last 35 years. We're appalled at what's going on because we had 11 Black people out here working and they all were laid off due to a discrepancy of so-called dollars. Well, we understand that the dollars that were allocated for this project might have gone in a different direction. On that note, I want to introduce some of the people that are out here with me today. Just one really. I want to introduce Brother Daoud Sherrells.
How you doing? My name is Daoud Sherrells. I'm here in full support of the Young Black Contractors Association and demanding transparency and also opportunities for local African Americans who are faced with the highest unemployment numbers in the state of California, and black subcontractors who normally never get the opportunity to even compete on public projects like this that our tax dollars are invested in to make sure that it creates two things: housing for the people and job and opportunities for the community. And you know, it's time for us to expose those people who are involved with utilizing these developments for their own self-gain and enriching themselves, and not really caring about the concerns of other people who are interested in feeding their family through work. And we'll be here, and this is an issue that's not going to go away until we get justice.
We want to make sure we let the public know, because we've mentioned this to the city of Carson before, that there were some problems out here on the site. And as I've mentioned this to the city of Carson, I don't know if they've had meetings, but I think they've had some sort of contact with the developer and contractors. It was said early on that we couldn't work out here because we didn't have a contractor's license or insurance. Well, if you look at the state board, you will see that our license has been good for the last several years. I don't know where these people are coming from. The only thing that I can see is that they put this vehicle together without inclusivity of black contractors. I think the nonprofits got what they were supposed to get. I think the head Negroes in charge got what they wanted to get. And it's just to the point right now, we're hoping that the NAACP, the oldest civil rights organization involved, which I've been deeply involved with for years, we're hoping that they step out and support us on this and get us to the table with these people, because they refuse to meet. If you don't have anything to hide, why won't you at least meet? They don't even want to meet. They say things about you that are not true. We've done multi-million-dollar projects throughout LA County over the last 30 years. And here it is now, we have a company saying that we don't know how to pump water. We're very ineffective at pumping water. We have local hire, local people, local training. We have all that within our jurisdiction. And Lennar Homes don't want to address that. I don't know why, but it needs to stop. Right now, when you look at the overall aspect of how blacks are faring, I shouldn't say faring because that's the name of the developer. When you look at how blacks are not getting work in the county of Los Angeles, you have to look at we're less than 1/10 of 1% on any public agency. And that's got to be by design. And we're still hooping and hollering about what we can do and how we're going to do it, and we shall overcome. Well, I want the state of California and the Democratic Party to know that as you work hard for the illegals, you should work just as hard for your black people. We're out here, and this company is telling us, take all your black butts home, we can hire illegals for a fraction of what we're paying you. This is what we're dealing with. This is the kind of stuff you deal with back in Mississippi 40, 50 years ago. This is Jim Crow at its finest. What do we have to do to get these people to realize that we deserve an opportunity on some of this work? This is about Build Back Better. This is about all the different things that's supposed to happen with the infrastructure. This is about all the monies that are allocated for the community. This is community-based business, and we're not involved. We're not involved because people say, oh, he doesn't live in Carson. How many of these white boys that you've hired to give harm away live in Carson? None of them. So don't use that narrative with me. The bottom line is, I got love, I got respect for the city of Carson, always have. When other cities wouldn't hire us back in 2007, the city of Carson made sure we stayed in business. And we're only asking at this point that the city of Carson get back involved with the NAACP and some of our other power broker organizations to make sure that we get a fair assessment at the table to sit down and talk about what's readily available to do business on. You don't tell me we're going to do underground utilities and give you a bid on it, and then when we look up, the job is already being executed. You don't tell me for 6 months you want me to do the underground for Lennar, and then when it comes down to getting the plans for Lennar, you don't even respond anymore. What kind of a business has the city of Carson hired to do with these people? What is the game plan? How is this even taking place?
We'll come to the table. Let's sit down like gentlemen. Let's make deals where everybody benefit and not a selected few. Or else, we're gonna escalate this, and we're not gonna stop until justice is served. And so that's the way we coming, and we'll go to the highest level. And like I say, if it takes me that we start organizing and shutting these type of operations down, because it's illegitimate for people to come in our community with $1 billion, and you turn around and you only hire 1% of the population, 1% of the community and the surrounding communities. You're not giving no minority companies the opportunities that sometimes is wrote in the same language that you must do. And so a lot of these developers and contractors come into historical black communities and communities of color and just take full advantage. And sometimes it's not so much of how they do it. We gotta look at the leadership, because this is the type of leadership that's giving these people cover. They're giving them cover because there's something strange in the milk. And so if we have to call upon the type of investigation and forensic investigation with reference to the economics as it tied to a lot of corruption that goes on in development projects, then that's what we're gonna do. We call for watchdog groups to monitor certain situations like this. This is taxpayers' money. This ain't a private situation, whereas you ain't supposed to invite the community. This is supposed to be transparent. Everybody in Carson is supposed to know. But as I talk to people in the Carson, don't nobody know what's going on around there. So when there's secrecy and darkness, that's where all the corruption and crime rise from a development standpoint of view, from a white collar standpoint of view, from a government corruption standpoint of view. So my thing is that get with us and let's resolve these issues so that everybody can be happy. Everybody can have a good Christmas, a good holidays, and everything that everybody's enjoying, living off the taxpayers' money right here in Carson in this development project.
The one thing that's sad, the one thing that's the saddest to me is that we're saying the exact same thing that black people talked about in '65. We're doing the same thing. We're having to get out and advocate for an opportunity to be involved or to work. And it's just not right. We've had enough leadership that look like we look to have dispelled the myths about what we can and can't do. So if we're gonna get out here and be fair, we gotta be fair across the board. Being fair across the board is giving a person a chance. Remember when black people couldn't play in the NBA? Remember when black people couldn't play in the NFL? Remember when black people couldn't play in the NFL? Simply because that was by design. And now here it is, the same thing in construction right now. We're being told what we can't do because we're not getting an opportunity. When you need an opportunity, you need a fair assessment of an opportunity, not just some guy saying, I'm going to give him a shot and slam the door on him. So where's the training dollars? Where's all the apprenticeship stuff? Where's everything that goes with the community? This is community-based situation. It should be filled and held and cared for by the community, not some yahoos that want to pop up like Jimmy the Cricket and say, I got the deal, I got you guys what you wanted, let me go. So clearly, we just wanted to make a statement today. We do not want to go to the lawsuit format. We will if we have to. The investigation, we've already contacted Rob Bonta's office. We want him to investigate this. This is ridiculous for people to come in and do the community this bad at this day and age. Thank you for coming out. We want to add to the fact that we are almost 100,000 in debt to these guys from working out here for 2 weeks, and we have not been paid. If you fire someone, you should pay them automatically right away, not tell them to wait and go through your system because you fired.
Wow. So I'm hoping, I think this is Mark Johnson. I'm hoping to have him here on the program. I've reached out because I want to know more about this, because this particular builder or construction company. And so here's the timeline of the events. So based on the content, there are documents protests Young Black Contractors Association against Lennar Homes in Carson, California. The allegations revolve around discriminatory exclusions of Black contractors from a development contract. So while the video does not explicitly use the term bait and switch in a consumer sales context, it describes a pattern that could be interpreted as such, initially engaging or promising opportunities to local Black contractors only to redirect work funds or contracts to others, potentially at lower cost or favoring non-local undocumented workers. This creates an accusation of luring in contractors with prospects of inclusion in a taxpayer funded project, then switching to exclude them without valid reasons. And sometimes what it happens is, I don't want to say it's like DEI or affirmative action, but what it does say is if you hire particular contractors that may be Black Americans, right, that are here legally, let's just say that, you will actually get tax breaks with the project. So what they could have done is initially use them, put them on the project, and then later on came up with this excuse, oh, well, they're not doing their job, and then bring in other people to pay them half as much. But you still get tax breaks because you initially hired the person you can get the tax breaks on. That's the bait and switch. It's disheartening. And I remember living in Carson, California, growing up. It was an interesting city. It was an apartment complex that we lived in. And then we eventually moved on to Avalon, Harbor City, Garden Grove, and we stayed in Orange County. But Carson, it used to be Black. It used to have a lot of Black Americans. It no longer, no. Nope. I want to say maybe like early 90s, predominantly Hispanic. Predominantly Hispanic. Like I grew up in California, but I would never live there. It's disgusting. I would never live in California. I don't know how my mom does it. She lives there. I don't know how she does it. Like, I'm glad I got out, escape LA, because it's just not, in my opinion, the Democrats have destroyed that state. They really have, from the bottom up, top down. It's a disgusting place. It could be so much better, but they don't care. And they really don't care about Black people. I mean, they were standing there with the NAACP. I was like, they're probably the people working against you. They don't care about you. They care about immigrants. The Democratic Party cares about immigrants. They don't care about Black Americans. Please, please stop that. They care about maybe having their vote, but now they're like, we got all the illegals voting. Why do we even need you? We don't need you. You're irrelevant. Yeah. Yeah. So all the loyalty that all Black Americans have paid homage to, they never cared. They don't care. Biden put in the 1994 crime bill. I want to hear somebody argue that. Joe Lewis voted for it. Hillary voted for it. Everybody voted for it. To incarcerate more Black men. Huh? Yeah. Destroyed people. Destroyed homes, lives. Outside of the drugs that you allowed into the Black community to destroy the Black community, by the way. And you still vote Democrat? Really? Okay. All right. Now, pre-engagement period. So for approximately 6 months prior to the protest in mid-25, the YBCA, a local firm with 35 years of experience, submitted bids for underground utility work on the Lanier project. Despite repeated submissions, they received no responses, plans, or feedback from Lennar. Complaints were lodged with the city of Carson, which reportedly contracted the developer but yielded no resolution. This period highlights initial outreach and promises of community involvement in public project setting up expectations with local contractor inclusion. So the initial project involvement, recent weeks, months prior to the protests in late 25, YBCA was briefly engaged with 11 Black workers on site performing tasks like underground utilities and water pumping. This suggests an initial bait phase where the association was allowed to participate, aligning with calls for economic opportunities in an area with high African American unemployment. Yeah, because they won't hire us. They won't hire Black Americans, but they'll hire everybody else. It's crazy. So, layoff and exclusion. Workers were abruptly laid off due to alleged discrepancy of so called dollars, which claims that project funds were redirected elsewhere. Lennar provided excuses such as the association lacking a contractor's license or insurance, despite YBCA confirming valid credentials via the state board. This represents the switch, where promised work was withdrawn and opportunities were allegedly given to other groups, including potentially undocumented workers hired at reduced rates, sidelining local Black contractors. And see, this is where, if the old, like Obama and Hillary and, Clinton were in, Lennar would have been fined for hiring people here illegally. But guess what? The Democratic Party's made it okay. Hey, yay. So all you blue, no matter who people, yeah, you're good with this, right? You're good with it. You got to be good with it because you can't be against it. The Democratic Party really needs to think this through. And Black Americans that are still voting Democrat need to think this through. We've got the NAACP, and this is a side note outside of this, supporting illegal immigration. They are supporting going against ICE. They are training people to go against ICE. This is the Democratic Party. And that's all the NAACP is. It's another arm of the Democratic Party. That's who they are. So they're okay with these Black contractors being abused like this. Because how are you going to defend them when it's your very policies working against them? You just don't even have a leg to stand on. It's crazy. Now, the protest and public accusations, January 7, 2026, and that's the date of this video. The YBCA organized a public protest at the project site captured in the video. Speakers, including Mark Johnson and supporter Derez, demanded transparency investigations into project finances and equal opportunities. They accused Lennar of systemic exclusion, favoritism towards select nonprofits and contractors, and failing to uphold community benefits in a taxpayer-funded development. It's taxpayer-funded. So they are actually supposed to be included. But you hired them. You got the tax break and then you fired them. So the protest calls for accountability, framing the overall experience as discriminatory and economically harmful, akin to a bait and switch by inciting local participation without follow through. And I said, can you outline the NAACP's involvement? So the direct reference, a speaker describes the NAACP as the oldest civil rights organization involved. The call to action, the speaker urges the NAACP, emphasizing that Lennar has refused meetings with engagement. Broader appeal, they call on the city of Carson to re-engage with the NAACP to ensure a fair process, transparency, and opportunities for Black contractors to participate in the taxpayer-funded development. This frames the NAACP as a key entity for mediation, advocacy, and pressure to resolve. They're not going to show up for you, Mr. John. I hate to say it, Mr. Johnson. They're not going to show up for you. You know why? Because they're supporting illegal immigration. They're not going to support you as a Black American. They're just not, and they don't care. Sorry you had to hear it from me. But they don't care, and they are not going to help you. It's not who they are. It's sad. So as of January 12th, 2026, there's no public evidence of formal NAACP involvement yet, and there's not gonna be. No statements, investigation, legal actions, or endorsements from the National NAACP, its legal defense fund, or local branches. And you're not gonna get anything. This specifically tied to the Lanier YBCA dispute. You're not gonna get any help from these people. So, and then I have another video that I'm going to share with you guys. But before we get to that video, actually, let me go to that video and then let me come back here.
Get done. You'll see executive action from him, and then shortly after that, he'll codify it with Congress. I think this is going to be a big win for the American people.
You know, you might think the home builders would be opposed to that.
That this will get done. You'll see executive action from him, and then shortly after that, he'll codify it with Congress. I think this is going to be a big win for the American people.
You know, you might think the home builders would be opposed to.
Now I'm pausing this. Now, as you can see, there's been an 8.8% increase in stock for Lennar. So they're not hurting. They're making money. Stock actually went up.
That shutting off, you know, one avenue for selling their homes, but the housing stocks were through the roof on Friday. Lennar, Toll Brothers, Pulte, and D.R. Horton all up significantly. You know, there's nothing like owning your own home and being able to, you know, paint whatever color you want on the walls and plant shrubs out in front, nobody telling you what to do. The president really would like to make that possible. For a lot of people, it hasn't been possible.
Yeah. So the mortgage rates have fallen, right? Making home ownership more accessible. But for context to the rise, the discussion highlights that contrary to potential expectations, home builders like Lennar benefited from the news of an upcoming executive order banning institutional investors, Wall Street firms, from purchasing single-family homes. This policy is portrayed as shifting the market toward individual buyers, potentially boosting demand for new home construction without relying on large-scale institutional purchases. So, specific performance on January 9th. The video displays a graphic of housing stocks January 9th, showing specific gains across the sector and reacting to a policy announcement. Lennar stock is noted as rising 8.8% that day. So broader implications mentioned. The narrator notes that housing stocks were through the roof despite the policy potentially shutting off one avenue of selling their homes to institutions, right? This suggests market optimism that the ban could increase affordability for families, stimulate organic demand, and favor builders focused on single-family homes. The video ties this to Trump's goal of making homeownership possible for a lot of people. It hasn't been possible for emphasizing freedom from corporate oversight. So nobody telling you what to do. So, because my husband, we were talking about this, and his question is, well, what happens to all the homes that have already been purchased by Vanguard and BlackRock? We know who they are. Say their names, right? We know who they are. They bought up swaths of homes and then sold them at higher prices, right? And then jacked up the market artificially. Yeah, they did that. Just criminal behavior. Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Larry Fink, who's also working with the president, by the way. Yeah, I just need you to stop being greedy and horrible people. My goodness. So based on the video, which features FHFA Director Bill Pulte confirming details on Fox, so they give another outline, and I'll definitely link this. So as of current date, Public sources indicate this remains in the planning or announcement phase. Trump announced steps toward the ban on January 7th, but no official signing has been reported yet. So what it is, it's going to be a ban on companies like Vanguard and BlackRock actually buying homes. They're no longer going to be able to do that. It will have to be a human person that's going to live there, right? So I can't say, hey, I want to buy my kids a house. I guess I could buy my kids a house, but they have to live there. They have to be on the deed. Okay. Those humans, you're not going to be buying homes and just renting them. Okay. That needs to stop. People need to be able to buy homes and afford to buy those homes. Right. But we have to get a whole bunch of people off the soil that don't need to be here. And we need to stop building apartment buildings everywhere, because that's crazy. I'm glad President Trump is doing what he's doing, definitely trying to boost the housing market and at the same time level it. And what I mean by level it is getting these corporations out of home ownership. You shouldn't even be involved, but it was allowed under the previous administration. And this really goes back to Congress. It shouldn't take the president to come in to say, hey, we really shouldn't be letting companies buy homes. Congress should have been like, nope, we're not going to let that happen at all, and just did it. It's very interesting with Congress, because depending on what it is, and I guess how it suits them politically, they don't go after stuff. They just don't do things. It's whatever. It's really, really, really sad. Let's see, we got a couple more videos to get into. This next one, found it interesting. It's more fraud. Sorry. Fraud's never gonna go away. But I wanted to share this with you guys.
Candidates that California could be losing $250 billion in the state's education system, including reports of fake community college applications, scamming student aid funds. Which brings us to a different kind of fraud: ghost daycares.
Oops, sorry about that. Oh, that was just a short clip. Okay. So the ghost daycares, it says 2 out of 2 child cares reviewed so far had 0 children present during a state inspection. Abdullah Suad Family Child Care had only the owner and her own baby present. The owner was cited for missing school enrollment verification for 6 out of 6 enrolled children. Wow. So I'm not sure what state that happened in. It might have been in California. It might have been in Minnesota. I'm not sure. But yeah, $250 billion in California. That's just in the education part. We ain't got to know. Look, the grift has been real, but guess what? The faucet is being shut off. I really want to see how many hit dogs are going to holler when the money's gone, like when it's gone. Like right now, they're still kind of floating or whatever. And right now they are actually suing the Trump administration and the USDA for stopping like SNAP benefits or whatever. I don't know if that falls with the financial arm of it, because SNAP is different than the welfare benefits, the financial money benefits. But it's going to be interesting to see how many states get upset and be like, you need to still send us our money, even though we're committing all this fraud. It's like, no, the American people do not want this. Real Americans do not want fraud. Real ones. And yeah, it's so crazy. It's almost like the movie Civil War. I suggest you guys watch that if you haven't watched it yet. It's an interesting film because it actually really looks at the dismantling of the American public. And there's a line in there where a gentleman says, well, what kind of American are you? And I was like, whoa, that is a valid question. What kind are you? Are you an American that believes in sovereignty? right? In freedom? Or are you an American that's just okay with no wall, no no something, no walls, no USA at all? Is that the kind of American you are, right? You don't care no borders, no walls, no USA at all, right? Is that the kind of American you are? It does beg the question, who are you as an American? But that's a line in the movie. And the not to spoil the whole movie, but the premise is basically something goes down and it divides the country into two separate factions, where there's one faction trying to literally kill the president of the United States and another faction trying to salvage what they consider to be a free country. But then that leads into more of a what would we call them? Oh my gosh, why is their name escaping me right now? Confederate type mentality. I mean, but that's just what's portrayed in the movie. So who people were calling themselves patriots or viewing themselves as patriots. It was almost like a more of a Confederate mentality. Like if you were white, you were okay. But maybe if you were not white, you might not be okay. And you needed to kind of fend for yourself if you weren't white in the movie. Because there weren't very many people of color. There was like one or two happening. And it's done from the perspective of a journalist. So it's got Kristen Dunst in it and a couple other people. But it's a really good watch in the sense that it makes you start to think of the mentality of people in America and how they look at themselves and how they view themselves and just the things you could see. So yeah, definitely watch Civil War when you get the opportunity. And so we're going to get into our last video, and this is from Promethean, and we're going to see what she's got to say about Trump and Davos.
Donald Trump, in less than 2 weeks, the president is going to march his full economic team into the World Economic Forum in Switzerland. You could say he's walking into the lion's den, except that he's the lion. And the globalists know it. Yesterday, the New York Times shrieked that Donald Trump has set himself above international law. They wrote on topic after topic. President Trump made clear he would be the arbiter of any limits to his authority, not international law or treaties. But it's not international law they're worried about. It's their entire globalist system. And that is what Trump was actually telling the New York Times. And that is exactly what he's going to tell the gathered so-called international elite at Davos. He's crippled their dirty money laundromat in the Caribbean with the Venezuelan operation. He's declared war on the economic cartels, and he's withdrawn from 66 international organizations that are used to enforce globalist policies. Now, you're not supposed to notice any of that. You're supposed to be caught up in the play-by-play of the Minnesota ICE shootings, while the Democratic foot soldiers and the controlled media try to spin up their irregular warfare operations here at home. Well, Trump and his team aren't going to let them get away with that. Both J.D. Vance and Scott Bessent made that clear in the past 2 days.
What that headline leaves out is that woman is part of a broader left-wing network to attack, to dox, to assault, and to make it impossible for our ICE officers to do their job.
I'm Susan Kokinda, and I've seen how for decades the enemy keeps the American people in check by trapping them on the battlefields that the enemy chooses in order to keep patriots away from the real fight, which is bringing down the British imperial system. Well, Donald Trump is taking that system on, and if that's the fight you want to be a part of, I need you to hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons so we can stay in touch and we can expand our reach on YouTube. Here's what we're going to cover today. How Trump is going to deliver the terms of surrender at Davos, that the Trump administration has already taken a direct strike on 66 transnational organizations, and how Treasury Secretary Bessent is bringing the fight right home here in Minnesota. So in less than 2 weeks, Donald Trump lands in Davos, and he's bringing with him a demolition crew. He's bringing Treasury Secretary Bessent, Commerce Secretary Lutnick, Energy Secretary Wright, Trade Representative Greer, and don't forget Trump's close confidant and diplomat of all trades, Steve Witkoff. Why this group? Because they represent all the elements that are replacing the British liberal free trade system. Lutnick and Greer are going to tell them that the era of sending American manufacturing capacity overseas and gutting our middle and working classes is over. Bessent is there to cut off the capital flows that prioritize global financial income streams over American wages. And Chris Wright, well, he's the walking refutation of the entire insane green agenda. And Steve Witkoff, well, he's the guy who gets things done for Donald Trump. But to really understand what Trump is doing in Davos, you're going to have to understand where Davos comes from. It was started in 1971. That was the year the British Empire dismantled the Bretton Woods financial system. That is the system that had stabilized economies in the post-war world. So the World Economic Forum was launched to begin to manage this post-1971 period. Everyone knows it was created by Klaus Schwab, but he had been mentored by Henry Kissinger at Harvard in the late 1960s. And let's not forget that Kissinger, later on, when he was Secretary of State, went on to say that in his Secretary of State capacity, he kept the British Foreign Office more closely informed than he did the State Department. So the establishment of the WEF in 1971 wasn't a coincidence. It was a transfer of power. As they killed off the power of sovereign governments to control their own credit, they built up a new temple for the transnational corporations that would rule in their place. And for 55 years, Davos has become one of the nodal points of this empire, and probably the most well-known. They don't use armies, they use ideology, and they have applied the ideology of the British Empire to the 21st century, and they've hijacked the world until now. And for all those years, researchers at Promethean Action have been exposing those operations, whether it's the WEF or the Council on Foreign Relations, or the neoconservatives or their free trade ideology, and all the other groups and policies. More importantly, we know how to defeat them. So if you want to get into the real battle, head on over to Promethean Action and subscribe to our free newsletter, because we will continue to give you the up-to-date coverage of what Trump is really doing. Because in 10 days, Trump is going to the WEF. And contrary to the claims of the naggers and the heel biters within the MAGA movement, Donald Trump is not going to Switzerland to play nice with the Davos men. He and his team are arriving with a fully activated American system alternative to their policies of globalism and imperialism, and he will be laying down the terms of surrender. Now, he's already laid down some covering fire before his team heads out, hitting them exactly where it hurts, their networks of soft power. Just 3 days ago, the White House released a new finding withdrawing the United States from 66 international organizations, conventions, and treaty. Marco Rubio made clear they're pulling the plug on what he called a sprawling architecture of global governance, which, as he put it, serves the same elite networks of the multilateral NGO complex. And then Rubio drilled down on what this apparatus really is. He said, from DEA mandates to gender equality campaigns to climate orthodoxy, many international organizations now serve a globalist project rooted in the discredited fantasy of the end of history. These organizations actively seek to constrain American sovereignty. Now, the organizations that the U.S. is withdrawing from include the full gamut of green enforcement institutions that have been set up in the last few decades to enforce the carbon dioxide is poison policy, which is supposed to make nations deindustrialize. Also, some of these institutions that we're withdrawing from go all the way back to the very foundation of the UN in the late 1940s. And if you go back to the early days of the UN, you'll find people like Julian Huxley letting it all hang out as to the British plans for the UN, which, by the way, were contrary to Franklin Roosevelt's intentions. Huxley was the grandson of Thomas Huxley. Thomas had been the president of the British Royal Society, and he served on Queen Victoria's Privy Council in the heyday of the 19th century form of British imperialism. Julian was groomed to administer the same policies in their 20th century form, and so he became the first head of UNESCO when the UN was founded, where he took up several projects. First, he laid out what the purpose of UNESCO was. He said, in its educational program, it can stress the ultimate need for world political unity and familiarize all people with the implications of the transfer of full sovereignty from separate nations to a world organization. Remember what Marco Rubio just said? These organizations actively seek to constrain American sovereignty. And Huxley also had the slightly more delicate task of repackaging one of the empire's most evil policies, race science or eugenics. Here's what Huxley said in 1948. Even though it's quite true that any radical eugenic policy will be for many years politically and psychologically impossible, it will be important for UNESCO to see that the eugenic problem is examined with the greatest care and that the public mind is informed of the issues at stake so that much that now is unthinkable may at least become thinkable. Let's not mince words. Huxley is saying Hitler gave eugenics a bad name, and we have to reframe it in the post-war world, and we're going to use these institutions to do it. So Huxley and many of the other card-carrying eugenicists became founders of the environmentalist movement, which ultimately metastasized into the green fascist organizations that the Trump administration just shut down. So by withdrawing from these 66 organizations and treaties, Trump and his team are stating clearly the U.S. is no longer abiding by your green zero growth policies, your human rights frauds that protect terrorists, and your Malthusian population reduction schemes. But the enemy doesn't just operate out of Davos or the UN. They have tentacles right here in the heartland of America. The chaos we're seeing in Minnesota and in other cities, the attacks on ICE, the rioting, this isn't organic. It's the same spider web. But the media is trying to keep you fixated on every new camera angle of the shooting in Minneapolis. Vice President J.D. Vance addressed the real issue.
What that headline leaves out is that that woman is part of a broader left-wing network to attack, to dox, to assault, and to make it impossible for our ICE officers to do their job. If the media wants to tell the truth, they ought to tell the truth that a group of left-wing radicals have been working tirelessly, sometimes using domestic terror techniques to try to make it impossible for the President of the United States to do what the American people elected him to do, which is enforce our immigration laws.
Vance is holding the shield, but Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is drawing the sword. While the media focuses on the street violence, Bessent is looking at the apparatus that funds it. He just announced a full investigation of the fraud surrounding the daycare centers and much, much more. He made clear that the Treasury's enforcement arm, FinCEN, along with the IRS, will be looking at financial institutions and at 501c3s. He's tracking the money that moves from the same globalist foundations that interface with the UN, that used to interface with USID before Trump shut it down, and other institutions. He's looking at how this moves directly into the accounts of domestic groups burning down our cities, and he's putting them all on notice.
We track, we follow the money, and we intend to follow it as much as we can, prosecute the individuals, no matter where they are, whether they are in the Minnesota government or they are sitting in East Africa. We will find them.
Then Bessent made clear that this isn't just about daycare centers, that these are the same methods used by the cartels, and they will be investigated in the same way.
We view this crime as very similar to the cartel's money laundering, many of the same approaches, many of the same shell companies. So we will see where it goes out from here. That will be a starting point. And as I said, Minnesota is going to be the protocols, the procedures, and the investigative techniques, as well as the collaboration with other agencies. Minnesota is going to be the genesis for a national rollout.
Catch that last comment? This is a national rollout. These are all intertwined networks, the fraud, the cartels, drug money laundering, and the foot soldiers who are rioting and impeding ICE. This is the bottom of the apparatus that goes up through the global banking institutions, the UN, the NGOs, and the WEF. And Donald Trump is on all at once. So let's step back and see what Trump has done in the first 10 days of 2026. He smashed their offshore money laundering operations in the Caribbean. He's withdrawn from 66 transnational organizations and treaties that have been strangling American sovereignty, some since the UN was founded. His Treasury Secretary is now following the money right into the NGOs and the 501c3s that fund the foot soldiers attacking our law enforcement agents on American streets. This is a coordinated strike on every level of the spider web, from Davos to Minneapolis. So, sure, the New York Times is screaming that Trump has set himself above international law. Good, because their international law was never law. It was a cage built to keep America trapped inside a system designed by the British Empire and administered by their globalist heirs. Donald Trump is taking a jackhammer to that system. So if you want to stay focused on this, not the play-by-play distractions, but on the strategy to win the real war, then join us at Promethean Action. Get our free newsletter or become a paying member or a contributor.
Yeah, I do like Promethean, but that's a lot, but in a good way, right? Getting things realigned. And it is going to be uncomfortable. You know, I know a lot of people are like, why are we picking on the Somalis? Nobody's picking on the Somalis. I mean, if you're involved in crime, you're involved in crime, but they're not the only ones involved in crime, right? There's more. I mean, I think, you know, when I think of Illinois, I think of crime. Okay. So even though everybody's spotlighting Minnesota, don't think that New York and Illinois and California aren't too far behind, because they've been committing fraud for decades. We're just now finding out about some of this fraud in Minneapolis. And I say some of it because it's still being uncovered. There's things that we still don't know that are happening over there. Now, before we end the broadcast today, I did want to check on all sides, because I know I play all my videos and I don't really get to all sides all the time, but I came across this article and I wanted to share it with you guys. So there is a record number of U.S. adults they identify as politically independent, right? So a new Gallup poll found that 45% of U.S. adults identified as political independents in 2025, surpassing previous high marks from 2014, 2023, and 2024. It's interesting because when I started my political party, people were like, oh, people don't vote independent. I was like, there's more than 40% of people that are independent. You just don't know it because they don't talk about it, because the other parties are like, don't tell people. Don't say that. That's close to 50%. So the other 55%, that's split between, the Republicans and Democrats. You guys are splitting 55%. Because 45% are going independent. They're walking away from both parties. It's crazy. Now, the details, the Gallup findings are based on interviews with over 13,000 U.S. adults. It indicated younger generations, including Gen Z, 56%, and millennials, 54%, disproportionately identify as independents, while older generations were less likely to do so. Both Republican or Democrat Party identification dropped to 27% each. Wow. Among independents, 20% leaned Democrat, 15 Republicans, and 10 were non-leaners, a shift from 2024 that narrow Republicans' advantages. So ideologically, 35% described themselves as conservative, 28% as liberal, and 33% as moderate, with conservative advantage over liberals at 7 points, the smallest since 1992. Now, for context, the Gallup noted party shifts often correspond with negative evaluations of the sitting president, with independents tending to favor the opposition party, right? These trends contributed to the Democratic Party regaining an edge in 2025 following Republican advantages in 2024, although favorable ratings for either major party remain low historically. So the New York Magazine Left contextualized the changes within trends of political division division and an increase in civic engagement among young people. It said the dissatisfaction seems to indicate greater levels of profound dissatisfaction compared to previous generations and reflects concerns over issues both parties are failing to address. The National Desk, which is right, and Newsweek, which is center, both highlighted the impact for the Republican Party. The National Desk noted fewer folks are pure free agents when they enter the voting booth, writing that in 2024, only 6.7% of voters were pure independents, the lowest in over 70 years. It also mentioned that sitting presidents have lost House seats in 8 of the past 10 midterms, suggesting that should be expected in 2026. Newsweek attributed the shift of more independents leaning left to souring attitudes towards President Trump rather than enthusiasm for Democrats. It wrote, the number of Democrats hope as they seek to defend congressional control in November, but noted Gallup analysis that independents are only reacting to the current political environment. Now, here's the thing. Both parties need to do better. They do. They just do. I'm just not going to say they don't. They do. And I was sharing with my husband, there was a pastor that I came across, and he said, the Democrats don't do anything for Black Americans because they expect their vote. Republicans don't do anything for Black Americans because they know they're not going to get their vote. So where does that leave the American Negro? Without anything is where it leaves us. Without anything. Because there's no political pressure from them to do anything for anybody. They're not serving anyone. They're not even serving the illegals, even though it looks like it. They're serving the powers that be. So whoever's putting money in their pocket and saying, you say this, you do this, you go here, you go there, that's what they're doing. Because when I think about cities and I look at these small towns and I'm like, wow, there could be a gas station over there. There could be a convenience store over here. There could be homes being built. Why aren't we restoring what's here? Why does this look like everything's falling apart? That is local, state, and your federal government in your state, focused on your state. And it's all falling apart. And neither party is really got a plan on how to fix it. Now, the things that Donald Trump are doing, people are like, I don't like what he's doing. I hate it. You never like what anybody's doing, but you don't put anybody in office. You don't get off the couch yourself. So what are we doing? Get up off the couch. Hey, go independent. Check me out. USARedemptionParty.com. We have our own party. We've already won a small town in the town of Roseland, Indiana. Again, check it out, USARedemptionParty.com. We are looking for servants of the people, not politicians. And that's where our party is going to stand out. And we are going to continue to be successful. The goal is to have 50 small towns or cities in all 50 states that are governed by the redemption party. It's going to happen. We're going to see it. So thank you guys for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News for this Tell It All Tuesday. We will see you tomorrow for Women and Wellness Wednesday, and it will be open mic for the women. So anybody that wants to join me, please email me at unfilteredvisionnews@gmail.com or just send me a message on X, and I am at It's Our Turn RP on X. So again, thank you for joining me here on Tell It All Tuesday, and remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.